Joseph Smith the prophet said that the beast spoken of represented the kingdoms of men, and the preface of this chapter also states this. The cross-referencing also establishes this same fact. John clearly saw our day. The 7 heads, representing 7 countries, are in existence today. They are known as the Group of 7, or the 7 leading industrialized nations. In the Wall Street Journal of April 8, 1991, we read, "In short, the world badly needs economic leadership, but the U.S. cannot go it alone. If the new world order that President Bush is so fond of mentioning means anything, it means that today's world requires global cooperation. And in the economic sphere, the so-called Group of 7, which includes the central bankers and finance ministers of the 7 leading industrial nations, offers the best hope for such cooperation." This shows that the secret combination is fully involved in this matter. In the Deseret News of May 23, 1991, we read who those 7 nations are. Gorbachev says he hopes to get an invitation to the July summit meeting in London of the G7 countries: the United States, Canada, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. We know that the economies of these 7 nations support the whole earth, and thus we see that they truly support the nations of Europe represented by the 10 horns. Verse 2, remember that the beasts and their parts represent the nations of the earth. President Ezra Taft Benson, in his conference address of April 4, 1986, entitled "The Power of the Word," said of the dragon is Satan. Verse 3, out of the group of 7 nations, there is only one nation that received a wound that looked deadly and was healed, and that nation is Germany. It was seen to be healed by the whole world on television as the wall separating East and West Germany was torn down. Anyone watching that television episode of the wall coming down could understand that the whole world truly wondered. Verse 4, it is easy to see that men do worship Satan today by the wickedness they accept and revel in. President Benson, in his Power of the Word speech, stated, "We live in a day of great challenge. We live in that time of which the Lord spoke, when he said, 'Peace shall be taken from the earth, and the devil shall have power over his own dominion.' There is no power on earth greater than the Christian nations today, truly fulfilling John's word." Verse 5, with all the perversions taught by men and sanctioned by governments, truly we have blasphemies spoken today. It is very important to understand that in order for something to continue, it must have already existed. Verse 7, remember the beast previously existed, and in President Ezra Taft Benson's address of April 4, 1986, entitled "The Power of the Word," we are told it existed then and was making war with the saints. The dragon is Satan. The woman represents the Church of Jesus Christ. Satan is waging war against the members of the church who have testimonies and are trying to keep the commandments. And while many of our members are remaining faithful and strong, some are wavering, some are falling, some are fulfilling John's prophecy that in the war with Satan, some saints would be overcome. See Revelations 13:7. Verse 13. Let us go to President Ezra Taft Benson's conference address of October 1961. The great destructive force which was to be turned loose on the earth, and which the prophets for centuries have been calling the abomination of desolation, is vividly described by those who saw it in vision. Ours is the first generation to realize how literally these prophecies can be fulfilled now that God, through science, has unlocked the secret to thermonuclear reaction. In the light of these prophecies, there should be no doubt in the mind of any priesthood holder that the human family is headed for trouble. There are rugged days ahead. It is time for every man who wishes to do his duty to get himself prepared physically, spiritually, and psychologically for the task which may come at any time, as suddenly as the whirlwind. Elder Bruce R. McConkie of the Council of the 12 stated the following in General Conference of April 1979. It may be, for instance, that nothing except the power of faith and the authority of the priesthood can save individuals and congregations from the atomic holocaust that surely shall be. Verse 14. As members of the church, we must always follow the prophet, that we are not deceived, for many things are going to transpire that are meant to deceive. Verse 15. The nations of today each have images or seals that tell you who they are and their power structure, and there is no reason to believe that this system won't have theirs. It states that if you do not give your allegiance to theirs, they will seek your life. Verse 16. The dictionary describes a mark as a visible impression or a peculiarity or distinguishing figure. There will have to be a worldwide false peace and an agreement among nations in order to instigate such widespread acceptance. If one was to couple a false peace with a worldwide depression or economic collapse, it would make such a system even more acceptable. Both of these conditions approach us today. President George Bush stated the following on September 11, 1990. A new partnership of nations has begun, a new world order, stronger in the pursuit of justice and more secure in the quest for peace. 100 generations have searched for this elusive path to peace. Verse 17. If we as Latter-day Saints do not have our year's supply, we will be included in that which is here described, or starved. Verse 18. Here we are again told that this second beast is a man, and that the system that will be used will be a numbering system. Anyone seeing credit cards or a debit system should realize that such a system could be instigated today. In the world's numbering of such systems, 666 denotes international numbering. Every Latter-day Saint will have to be wise enough to follow the Lord's prophet when the system comes, and will have been wise enough to have prepared ahead for such a day. We know that true Latter-day Saints will not take the mark of the beast. We have been told by the prophet of God to have a 1-year supply of food, fuel, and clothing. President Spencer W. Kimball at Welfare Services meeting of April 6, 1974 said the following: The little gardens and the few trees are very valuable. I remember when the sisters used to say, well, but we could buy it at the store a lot cheaper than we can put it up. But that isn't quite the answer, is it, Sister Spafford? Because there will come a time when there isn't a store. When the mark comes and no man can buy or sell with the mark, there will be no stores for the Latter-day Saints then, will there? In an address given by President Ezra Taft Benson in a priesthood session of General Conference on October 3, 1987, he stated, I ask you earnestly, have you provided for your family a year's supply of food, clothing, and where possible fuel? The revelation to produce and store food may be as essential to our temporal welfare today as boarding the ark was to the people in the days of Noah, unquote. Remember, only those who had an ark survived. In April conference of 1976, Elder Vaughn J. Featherstone stated, for 26 years, since I was 15, I was involved in the grocery industry. I learned much about human nature during those years. I remember the effect that strikes, earthquakes, and rumors of war had on many very active Latter-day Saints. Like the 5 foolish virgins, they rushed to the store to buy food, caught in the panic of knowing that direction had been given by the prophet, but not having followed that direction, fearful that maybe they had procrastinated until it was everlastingly too late. In April conference of 1979, Elder Bruce R. McConkie stated, I stand before the church this day and raise a warning voice. It is a prophetic voice, for I shall say only what the apostles and prophets have spoken concerning our day. It is a voice calling upon the Lord's people to prepare for the troubles and desolations which are about to be poured out upon the world without measure. For the moment we live in a day of peace and prosperity, but it shall not ever be thus. Great trials lie ahead. All of the sorrows and perils of the past are but a foretaste of what is yet to be, and we must prepare ourselves temporally and spiritually. Now some statements on important events, and where the Latter-day Saints and good honest people who support the Constitution will gather and be when the time of the mark comes. Prophet Joseph Smith stated, peace will be taken from the earth, and there will be no peace only in the Rocky Mountains. This will cause many hundreds and thousands of the honest in heart to gather there, not because they would be saints, but for safety, and because they would not take up the sword against their neighbor. President Brigham Young stated, an inland empire will be established in these valleys of the mountains, which will be a place of refuge for millions of people to gather to when the great day of the judgments of God comes upon the earth, and the righteous come here for safety. Our people will go east, west, north, and south, but the day will come when they will be glad to come back. We will be shut out from the rest of the world. He also stated, we are blessed in these mountains. This is the best place on earth for the Latter-day Saints. Search for the history of all nations and every geographical position upon the face of the earth, and you cannot find another situation so well adapted for the saints as are these mountains. Here is the place in which the Lord designed to hide His people. It has been designed for many generations to hide up the saints in the last days, until the indignation of the Almighty be over. His wrath will be poured out upon the nations of the earth. Let's look now at the conditions that will be upon us at that time. President Brigham Young stated, by and by there will be a gulf between the righteous and the wicked, so that they cannot trade with each other, and national intercourse will cease. President Heber C. Kimball stated, lay up your stores and take your silks and fine things, and exchange them for grain and such things as you need. And the time will come when we will be obliged to depend upon our own resources. For the time is not far distant when the curtain will be dropped between us and the United States. When that time comes, brethren and sisters, you will wish you had commenced sooner to make your own clothing. I tell you, God requires us to go into home manufacture, and prolong it as much as you like. You have got to do it. Now Orson Pratt, And the time will come when we shall find ourselves restricted, and when it will be very important indeed for us to patronize home productions, and cease sending our millions abroad for importations. For the gate will be shut down, and circumstances will be such that we cannot bring things from abroad, and hence the necessity of the exhortation that we have received from time to time, to engage with all our hearts in the various branches of industry necessary to make us self-sustaining and to carry them out with all the tact